Cheeky 2-1D. God dang, I'm popping up!
What is up, Pro Guides family, and welcome back to my bedroom. We are no longer going to be using the studio, as some of you know. Keith Allen and I will now be filming from our houses. I know it can feel really isolating if you live alone, or if you live with a family as crazy as mine, then it can be really tough. Right now, there are question marks everywhere and no one knows what's going on. Let us just relax and enjoy this video about Mr. Fresh Asian, and hopefully he inspires some of you guys to become content creators yourselves one day. And if you are in that group who are feeling a little bit isolated right now, feel free to connect with me on Instagram. I would love to talk with you guys. Remember, you do have a community with us here at Pro Guides. Alright guys, let's get into the video. In just a little under 2 years, Fresh has accomplished the unimaginable. It wasn't that long ago he was mostly a nobody, but since then he's blown up and made a massive name for himself. His viewers came for the jaw-dropping moments and stayed for his lovable personality. Still, what a lot of people don't know about the pickle-loving Australian is just how difficult he had it growing up. His entire life, countless obstacles stood in the way, the likes of which required non-stop hustling to overcome. Luckily, Fresh is a natural-born hustler. Mr. Fresh Asian began his journey at a very young age. Around the time he was in kindergarten, his older stepbrother introduced him to the highly anticipated class-based shooter Team Fortress 2. This was Fresh's first popular game, and right away, he became obsessed. For days on end, all he'd want to do is play TF2, and part of that obsession was because of his older brother who, you see, just happened to be a pro player. The high-level gameplay Fresh witnessed blew him away. It inspired him. After seeing just what could be accomplished, there was nothing more he wanted to do than to be just as good as his brother. So he put in the time and rapidly improved, not all the way to the pro level, but to a point where he could join a server, rack up kill after kill, and top the scoreboard without a problem. And considering his age at the time, this feat was ridiculously impressive. Fresh would eventually move on from TF2 to more competitive titles, one of which was Counter-Strike. Now, we've done several of these stories so far, and in almost every single one, the person we look at plays Counter-Strike before getting into Fortnite. There is something about that game that attracts greatness and competition that is the perfect beginning to every Fortnite pro. Now that he was older, he could take gaming more seriously. No matter what, he'd sweat and try as hard as possible to become the best player he could. He'd even travel to small local LAN tournaments armed with just a dingy old laptop. And while everyone else was equipped with their best PCs, it didn't matter to Fresh. He'd whoop them in the competition, win prizes, and slowly worked his way towards a better setup. Just before Fresh turned 16, he hopped on the bandwagon, like many other players were, and joined in on the game that was taking the world by storm, Fortnite. Around this time, Fresh took a massive gamble. He dropped out of school to pursue his dream of going pro, which is a very, very risky situation, but in Fresh's case, it was even more risky. His parents had divorced, and eventually he ended up living with his mom in one of the most poverty-stricken suburbs in Australia. They didn't have much, money was tight, and so to take the leap at becoming a pro gamer was the riskiest thing that he could do. But with Fresh's drive to be the greatest, to be the best that he could be, nothing else mattered. He hopped into the grind and went pro.
Cause like I always set myself like a minimum amount of wins a day. I'd say like I have to get 15 wins every day. Like I would sit there, no matter like if I'm having the most tilting time, I would still play.
15 wins per day. Most of us weren't getting that in a week. Fortnite was so new, but it came so naturally to Fresh. However, he also committed to the hard grind, so no matter the circumstances, Fresh was guaranteed to make an enormous splash in the oceanic scene. Soon after, Fresh teamed up with the Australian dynamic duo, the X2 Twins, to form what was dubbed the Twinsanity Squad. And these guys were miles ahead of the competition. Fresh won event after event with his teammates, and eventually Twinsanity got noticed by none other than the Renegades, a premier esports org looking to pick up the best Australia had to offer. And of course, because of Twinsanity's insane win record and overall devotion to being the finest, they signed Fresh and the rest of the team without hesitation. Finally, on a pro team, Fresh's dream was starting to become a reality. But the grind never ended, and he was only grinding more, not just to become an esports superstar, but to become one of the biggest YouTube content creators as well. Fresh had always wanted to become a streamer. It was one of his lifelong dreams, but there was a problem in his way. The internet where he lived was awful, and if he wanted to broadcast his gameplay, he'd have to stream at 540p, which is extremely pixelated, and most people would not want to watch him. The quality was, well, just see for yourself.
No, stop fighting!
Still, despite his internet and all the other obstacles, Fresh was committed to streaming. If his connection died, he'd boot back up again and just try and keep playing. Even though he'd lose viewers every single time, there was nothing he could do about it. It didn't matter to him. He needed to do it. He put in the hours and managed to build a small and loyal fan base who kept returning to watch him, even with the low quality and even with the bad connection. And in September of 2018, Fresh would finally get the break of a lifetime. One day, it was just business as usual, sweating it out in some duos, when out of nowhere, he eliminated one of Fortnite's biggest stars, Lachlan. I don't know exactly how they ended up getting in touch after that. I think it was a Twitch follow and then some DMs on Twitter. But long story short, Lachlan took Fresh under his wing.
Okay. How the hell can you have a 70% win rate? You know what mine is? Mine's 4%! Mine's 4% win rate! Can you coach me?
This led to Lachlan and Fresh playing together a ton, and not too long after, through this amazing friendship, Fresh also became great friends with a couple of other legends, Laserbeam and Muselk, aka members of the Click Crew. And after appearing in so many of their videos, helping them get high kill dubs and complete absurd challenges, Fresh's own popularity started accelerating at lightning speed. But it wasn't just a business relationship. You see many streamers pairing up without actually liking each other, just trying to grow their network. But that wasn't the case. These guys actually really liked Fresh. His personality was chill, he didn't freak out or act weird meeting them, unlike a lot of us that would. Instead, he was just himself, and meshed super well with the entire group. So much so that they eventually said, "Hey Fresh, no more living in your current situation, in your 45 degrees in the summer house. Join our crew, come live with us." For Fresh, that was a huge success because it meant he can finally show the world what he was made of. But now that Fresh was part of such an influential group, he had a choice to make. Should he continue his path at becoming a pro Fortnite player, or diverge and take the more lucrative content creation route? Well, considering how tough it is to make it as an esports player in Australia, a country often underrepresented, the choice was obvious. Fresh stopped scrimming and limited his time practicing. Now, he'd put growing his channels front and center. However, that didn't mean that he had to stop competing entirely. So, when he was invited to the Australian Open Summer Smash, we got to see him perform in his prime.
Control of the highest point on the map here, and now he's in a great position, but he doesn't even want to stay high ground. He wants nothing but an elimination. He wants to end this one. It's going to be him in a 1 versus 1. It all comes down to this. Mr. Fresh Asian misses the shot. He's going to want that one back, but it's not over yet.
Yeah, he still has that high ground, and he also has the health advantage. Gets the shot across, and Mr. Fresh Asian.
That dominating performance thrust Fresh into first place, which won him 50 grand for the charity of his choice and incredible honor amongst the community. A couple months later though, the Fortnite World Cup got announced, and considering his recent move away from taking comp seriously, Fresh's fans were all wondering if he'd compete, and if he would, who would be his duo partner? Well, the answer was yes, he did compete, and out of all the players he could have chosen for his duo, he picked his buddy, his pal, Lachlan. Instantly, his fans questioned that decision, but to Fresh, seriously competing wasn't really at the forefront of his mind. Instead, he'd rather just play and focus on having a good time, making entertaining videos for his and Lachlan's channels along the way. And oh my god, this duo, despite being such a meme with Lachlan not being a competitive player and all, they actually did incredibly well. And in qualifying week number 8, Fresh's back must have hurt a lot because he was carrying especially hard.
Above. No build. On the left side. Try to finish.
Yeah.
1v1. 3 builds. No builds. Shoot down. Let's go!
With one game remaining, they were at 91 points, almost at the top of the leaderboard. Time was running out, and this happened.
Bro,
It was unfortunate, but even with that bit of luck, they finished 7th, a stellar performance, all things considered. But by the end of qualifiers, Fresh had a new duo partner, Rel, and this time, he was the real deal. So when the ridiculously large Trios FNCS prize pools were revealed, no more meme teams. They needed a legit pro third player, and fast. And after holding some tryouts, they decided on Jinx, another one of OCE's top players. And oh man, did this trio show up. Week after week, they'd finish near top 10, top 6, or top 3, popping off more than enough to qualify for the finals. And when the finals came, their skill and team play together came out in spades.
let's go!
Their gameplay was insane, often with Fresh doing a lot of the heavy lifting. When it was all said and done, they finished 3rd best in their region, only 2 points shy from 2nd, and earned $18,000 as a result. Then, the Chapter 2 FNCS came. This time, it was squads, so our trio needed a 4th. They teamed up with none other than Link, the absolute nutter, and again, Fresh and his team cemented themselves as being their region's top competitors. Beyond solid teamwork and high individual skill, which took them into the top 10 nearly every week and easily qualified them for the season finals. But when finals day came and Fresh was warming up, a bit of a curse struck. Only hours away from game time, his mouse broke.
Oh my god, there's no way. 40. Wait, there's no way my thumbnail, my thumb button is broke.
No way. What?
Luckily, he was able to get a friend to bring him a new one, so crisis averted. And with Link now at their side, this God Squad absolutely killed it.
90?
Nice, boys. Good stuff.
It was a brilliant performance. Every one of them played their heart out, and in the end, with insanely consistent performance, they finished 2nd and took home $21,000 split between them. Fresh always struggled to strike a balance between competitive play and content creation, but at this point, he'd found it. He didn't have to endlessly scrim or take time away from his stream. He could show up, compete, and still engage his audience. And despite not fully committing, his performance in the last 2 events proved once and for all that he was one of the best players in the world. So what's next for Fresh? He most recently got picked up as a content creator by esports giant Luminosity Gaming as he left Renegades a while ago. And with that signing, he's going to have a rich career continuously focusing on streaming, branding, and making hilarious videos for all of us to enjoy. Of all these story videos that we've done, I personally like this one. He's had to overcome a lot of obstacles. He's an awesome person.